It did not look like an important moment. Nothing loud happened. No sudden change, no clear sign that anything had shifted. To anyone watching, it would have seemed like just another quiet part of an ordinary day. But inside him, something paused and did not move the way it used to. He had been here before, many times, in fact. The same kind of moment. The same familiar pull rising inside his chest. That quiet pressure to react, to say something, to defend himself, or to correct what felt unfair. It was almost automatic, like a habit that had never been questioned. And yet, this time, something felt different. He noticed the feeling as it came, not all at once, but slowly, like a wave building far away before reaching the shore. A tightening in his chest, a small heat behind his thoughts, the kind of feeling that usually rushed him forward before he had time to think. But he did not rush. For the first time, he simply stood still inside himself. He watched the feeling instead of becoming it. And in that small space, something unfamiliar appeared. A quiet awareness. Why does this always happen? Why do I feel the need to respond so quickly? What would happen if I didn't? The questions were soft. They did not demand answers. They only opened a door. Around him, nothing had changed. They were still the same. The situation still carried the same weight. The words, the tone, the unspoken tension, all of it remained exactly as it had been before. But inside him, something loosened. It was not strength in the way he once understood it. There was no force in it, no pushing back, no effort to rise above. It felt quieter than that. Almost like stepping back from a noise he had grown used to hearing. He realized how quickly he used to move, how fast he would react, as if silence itself was something to fear, as if not responding meant losing something important. But now, standing in that moment, he wondered, losing what? Was it respect? Or was it just the need to be seen as right? Was it dignity, or just the fear of being misunderstood? The questions stayed with him, gently turning in his mind. He began to notice how much of his life had been shaped by these moments. Small reactions that felt necessary at the time, but left behind a quiet heaviness. Words that could not be taken back. Emotions that lingered long after the moment had passed. And now, for the first time, he felt the possibility of something else. He did not need to prove anything right now. He did not need to fix how they saw him. He did not need to explain himself in this very moment. That realization did not arrive with certainty. It came slowly, like a light appearing through fog. Faint at first, but steady. He felt the urge again, one last time, that familiar pull to speak, to react, to step into the same pattern he had always followed. It was still there, waiting for him, but he did not follow it. Instead, he let the moment pass through him. He allowed the feeling to rise, and then fall, without giving it a voice. It felt strange, almost uncomfortable. Like holding on to silence when everything inside wanted to break it. But beneath that discomfort, There was something else, something quieter, but stronger, a sense of space. For the first time, the moment did not control him. It did not decide his next step. It simply came, and then it went. And at its place, there was a stillness he had never truly known before. He did not fully understand it yet. He could not explain it, but he felt it gently settling inside him. A small shift, almost invisible, but real. The kind of shift that no one else would notice. The kind that changes everything. Silence stayed with him longer than he expected. At first, it felt unfamiliar, like walking a path he had always avoided. There was no immediate relief, no sense of victory. In fact, it almost felt like something was missing. The usual release of words, the quick defense, the feeling of having said something back, all of that was gone, and in its place there was only quiet. He could feel their eyes, even without looking. The unspoken question hanging in the air. Why is he not saying anything? Why is he just standing there? They were not used to this version of him. Neither was he. A part of him wondered if he had made a mistake. Maybe silence would be misunderstood. Maybe they would take it the wrong way. Maybe they already were. That thought lingered for a moment. Then another question followed. Softer this time. Does it matter? He did not ask it with defiance. There was no resistance in it. Just a simple curiosity, as if he were seeing things from a distance for the first time. For so long he had carried the weight of being understood, the need to explain himself clearly enough so that nothing could be twisted, the quiet hope that if he said the right words in the right way, they would finally see him as he truly was. But had it ever worked the way he expected? Or had it only pulled him deeper into the same cycle, again and again? He remembered the moments that came before, the times he spoke quickly, trying to protect himself, the times he reacted, thinking it would bring clarity. And yet, somehow, things always felt heavier afterward, as if every response only added more noise. Now, standing in silence, he noticed something he had never paid attention to before. Without his reaction, the moment began to change on its own. Not in a dramatic way, not suddenly, but slowly, almost quietly. The tension that once demanded his response had nothing to hold on to. It lingered, uncertain, and then began to fade. They shifted, not because he said something, but because he didn't. It was subtle, almost easy to miss, but he felt it. For the first time, he saw how much power he had been giving away without realizing it, how every reaction fed the moment, kept it alive, gave it direction. And now, without that reaction, the moment stood still. There was something strange about that realization, not empowering in a loud way, not something that made him feel above anything or anyone. It was quieter than that, more personal. It felt like stepping back into himself. He began to see that silence was not emptiness. It was not weakness. It was not the absence of something important. It was a choice, a space where he could remain untouched by what was happening around him, a place where he did not have to carry every word, every tone, every misunderstanding. Still, It was not easy. The urge to speak had not disappeared. It returned in small waves, testing him, reminding him of who he used to be in moments like this. And each time he noticed it and let it pass. He did not force himself to stay silent. He did not fight the feeling. He simply watched it the same way he had in the beginning, and slowly, something inside him began to settle. Not because everything around him had improved, but because he was no longer moving with it so quickly. There was a quiet strength in that stillness. Not something that needed to be shown. Not something that asked for recognition. Just something that existed quietly, firmly. They may have still misunderstood him. They may have created their own meaning in his silence. But for the first time, that did not pull him in the same way, because he began to understand something deeper. Not every moment needed his voice. Not every situation deserved his energy. And not every misunderstanding needed to be corrected. Some things cool, simply pass. And in letting them pass, he noticed a small but undeniable shift within himself. The noise that once followed him had begun to fade, not completely, not all at once, but enough for him to feel the difference, enough to know that something inside him had changed. Something quiet, but steady. Something they could not see. There was a time when he believed that strength meant answering everything. Every word that felt wrong, every tone that carried weight, every moment that seemed to question who he was. He thought he had to meet it all with something equal. Something clear, something that would settle it once and for all. But it never truly settled. Each response only opened another door, another explanation, another moment where he felt pulled to prove, to correct, to hold his ground. And slowly, without noticing, he had become tied to every passing thing. Now, standing in that quiet space he had chosen, he began to see it differently. Not all battles were real. Some only existed because he stepped into them. That thought did not arrive all at once. It unfolded gently, like something he had always known, but never stopped to understand. He looked back, not with regret, but with a kind of calm honesty. How many times had he given his energy to moments that disappeared the next day? How often had he carried words in his mind long after they had lost their meaning? And for what? To feel understood, even if only for a moment? Or to protect something inside him that never truly needed protection in the first place? The questions did not trouble him. They simply stayed with him, quiet and steady. He began to notice how different it felt now. To stand in a moment and not rush into it. To feel something rise within him and not let it decide his next step. It was not about holding back out of fear. It was not about avoiding what was uncomfortable, rateable. It was something else. A quiet decision to remain as he was, without needing to adjust himself for every passing voice. There was a kind of freedom in that. Not the kind that announces itself. Not the kind that others can easily see, but a deeper kind. The kind that comes when nothing outside of you can move you unless you allow it. He realized then this was not about them. It never truly was. They would continue as they always had. They would speak, react, misunderstand, and create meaning in their own way. That was something he could not control, and maybe he never needed to. For so long he had tried to shape how he was seen, to guide every moment toward clarity, to make sure nothing was left open to doubt. But now he saw the quiet cost of that effort. It had taken him away from himself, and in choosing silence, even just once, he had stepped back into a place where he did not need to chase understanding, where he did not need to hold every moment in his hands. He could simply be. That realization settled in slowly, like a calm that does not rush to arrive. He noticed how his breath felt different. Slower, easier, as if something inside him had loosened its grip without asking for permission. There was no pride in it, no sense of having achieved something great, just a quiet knowing. He did not have to react to everything. He did not have to carry what was never his to hold. He did not have to lose himself in moments that would pass on their own. And with that knowing, something else appeared. A kind of respect, not from them, but from within. It was subtle, easy to miss if he was not paying attention. But it was there, a sense that he had stayed with himself when it mattered, that he had not followed the same path just because it was familiar, that he had chosen differently, even when it felt uncertain. The world around him had not changed. They were still the same. The moments would still come. But he was no longer the same within them, and that changed everything in a way that did not need to be seen. He understood now that silence was not something empty. It was something he could stand in, something that held him steady when everything else tried to pull him away. Not loud, not forceful, not demanding anything in return. Just there, quiet and strong. And for the first time, that was enough. The change did not ask to be noticed. There was no moment where everything suddenly became clear. No instant where the world felt completely different. It was quieter than that, almost hidden. The kind of change that settles slowly without drawing attention to itself. He moved through his days as he always had. The same places, the same voices, the same small moments that used to pull him in without warning. From the outside, nothing about him seemed new. But inside, something no longer followed the same rhythm. Where there was once a quick reaction, there was now a pause. Where there was once a need to answer, there was now a quiet space that did not feel empty anymore. At first, he wondered if this would last. Was this just a passing feeling? A moment of calm that would disappear the next time something stirred him? He did not rush to answer that question. Instead, he watched. Another moment came, much like the ones before. A tone that could easily be taken the wrong way, words that once would have stayed with him longer than they should, the kind of moment that used to echo in his mind, asking for a response. He felt it again, that familiar rise inside him. But this time, it was softer, not because the moment had changed, but because he was no longer meeting it the same way. He noticed the feeling and let it be. He did not push it away. He did not try to silence it. He simply allowed it to exist without turning it into something more. And then, just as before, it passed. Not perfectly, not completely, but enough for him to see the difference. The moment did not stay with him. It did not follow him into the next hour, the next thought, the next quiet space where his mind used to return to it again and again. It simply ended. That was new. For so long, moments like these had stretched far beyond their time. They would settle into him, replay themselves, reshape themselves, asking to be understood or corrected long after they had already gone. But now, without his reaction, they seemed to lose their place. He began to feel lighter, not in a dramatic way, but in small, noticeable ways. Like something he had been carrying without realizing it had slowly been set down. There was more room inside him, more quiet, more distance between what happened and how deeply it reached him. He started to understand that not everything needed to leave a mark. Some things could come and go without becoming part of him. That realization did not make him distant. It did not make him cold or unfeeling. If anything, it made him more present, more aware of what truly mattered and what did not. Because now he could see the difference. He could feel when something deserved his attention, and when it was simply passing through, asking for a reaction it no longer needed, and slowly, without trying to force it, his silence became something steady. Not something he used only in certain moments, but something that stayed with him, like a quiet foundation beneath everything he did. They still spoke, as they always had. They still reacted, still created, meaning, still moved through their own patterns without noticing his change. And maybe they never would. But that no longer felt important. Because this shift was not meant for them. It was as his. A quiet reclaiming of something he had given away too easily before. Not his voice, but his peace. He no longer felt the need to guard himself in the same way. There was nothing to defend in every passing moment. Nothing that required him to step forward unless he truly chose to. And in that choice, he found something lasting. A calm that did not depend on what others said. A steadiness that did not break with every misunderstanding. A sense of self that did not need constant confirmation. It was not loud. It did not ask to be seen. But it was there, quietly shaping the way he moved, the way he felt, the way he existed within each moment. And without realizing it, the decision he once made in a single quiet moment had begun to follow him everywhere, not as effort, but as something natural, something that no longer needed to be chosen again and again. It had become part of him, and in that quiet, steady way, his life had already begun to change.